people get on my case. I'll tell you what, people get on my case and say, Luke, you talk about Todd too much. Talk about BGS. Like, we get it. You're a fan of Fallout. You want these games to be good. And so you're trying to have tough love with them and hopefully make a difference. Instead of just gassing them up, you're trying to like be real with them. I get that, Luke. I appreciate that, Luke. But can we chill? You talk about Todd too much. And I hear you. I want to be honest, I talk about it because I find him interesting as well. But I get that. Maybe I do talk about Todd too much. So I thought today, maybe, just maybe, we instead shake it up a little and listen to other people talk about Todd. This is a channel called KIWI TALKZ. And one of you guys sent me on our Discord clips of these. And it's a channel that does, I mean, he does all sorts of interviews with game devs and people. Does a phenomenal job. You should absolutely do this. Click, subscribe, and this, click. Go over there, show him some support, because he talks to a bunch of game developers, including and specifically people over at BGS. So this guy does phenomenal interviews with all sorts of developers. And I thought I would show you just a couple of them because he interviewed a bunch of devs. Each one of these clips that he's put together comes from whole interviews with each one of these developers. So you might see a character artist, you might see a quest designer, you might see this person or that person. And he's done entire 2-hour-long interviews with these game developers, and you should absolutely go check out the entire things because they are genuinely fascinating. And what's interesting is a lot of these guys, pretty much all of them actually that I think we're going to see, worked at BGS and have left in the last handful of years. And they're very passionate, they're very good at what they do, but they worked at BGS through the transitionary period. So a lot of them worked on like Fallout 3, worked on Skyrim, worked on Fallout 4, maybe 76. A lot of them worked on Starfield, and they've left in the last handful of years. And so these specifically are clips that he's collected of each of these developers from all different areas of the studio talking about Todd from their perspective. Okay. So you thought I talk about Todd too much? Well, boom, doom, boom, doom. Here we are. So here we go. First interview. Jonah.
You're alone.
So to be clear, this is character artist on Skyrim, Fallout 3, and 4.
If you're the guy in charge, you're a little bit, you're alone, you know, like it's you alone, you're the captain, you know, and so everybody can be tight with the captain. They can be loyal to the captain. It's hard to really be friends with the captain because there's not because of anything other than like, he's authority, you know, and his word has to go. And I think that one thing that I felt really good about in the years while I was there, you know, and I only agreed with maybe 65% of the decisions he made in general. But I think that's a very high batting average for a leader. I mean, think about like presidential approval numbers, right? Like, you know, like when you have to make, when there's some guy at the top making all the decisions, like you're not going to agree with a lot of them.
No.
But I will say that I think at the time of Fallout and Skyrim and all that, I think there was a general feeling whether or not you were angry at Todd or annoyed at Todd or whatever. I don't think there was ever any feeling like anybody else should be in charge.
Well, I think also one of the important things for a leader, especially in like a creative endeavor, is that they need to unify people around the vision. And you kind of have to have confidence in their vision. Like, for example, with From Software, they've got a lot of people working on that game. Like, just try to put yourself in the shoes of a developer working on Elden Ring. You probably have worked on Dark Souls, you've worked on Sekiro, you might have worked on some of those games, but now you are working on little bitty snippets of this game, and you have to have trust in the process that's going to scale, you know? Each one of those people making like a boss fight in Elden Ring, they are not seeing the whole game. Like, they don't see the whole map. They don't understand where this boss fight's going to necessarily go in relation to this one. They're just trying their best to like do their very specific thing. And you have to have confidence and trust in the director that's overseeing all of it, that all the pieces are going to go where they need to go. And that's the job of a game director, to keep all of that in mind, and the job of the developers to know that the director knows what they're doing. And so you may disagree with the choices. It surprised me here that the disagreement was that frequent, but I mean, it's just part of the system. You definitely have to have confidence in your leader.
And I think that's a huge deal. That's a huge deal, as I think that if, you know, I fundamentally knew that this was going to go well because Todd was in charge. And that's a feeling of profound security, you know, so.
I wonder if that's changed, because even if you work at Bethesda, you may love what you're doing, you know, and you're passionate about all the work and everything. But I do wonder if the negativity in the online discourse does affect you. because I understand Bethesda loves them some Bethesda, but like they launch an update for Fallout 4 and it breaks literally everything, and the whole internet is like, should have seen it coming. They don't know what they're doing. They're incompetent. Like everybody immediately starts trashing them and being like, you shouldn't have expected anything more. Putting out an update that doesn't break anything. This is Bethesda we're talking about. You know, like not gentle. So I wonder if that's changed, or maybe they just don't care. I don't know, but certainly like the online discourse no longer would make you think that like there's a lot of confidence in Todd's direction, you know, because you got to remember that he's talking from the perspective of somebody that worked on Fallout 3, Skyrim, leaning to Fallout 4 and on Fallout 4. And with those games, circa 2011, 2012, bro, anything Todd Howard says, yes, sir. Sir, yes, sir. You just put together Skyrim. You can do no wrong. You know, it's like Hidetaka Miyazaki in the aftermath of Elden Ring. Whatever you want. Okay? Like, we'll figure it out. Okay? We'll get you what you need. Nowadays, things have maybe changed, but back in that time period, for sure, I could see that cult of personality.
So, yeah, so he and I were great. We've always been great. And the last time I saw him was at my producer Angela's wedding, actually. And he got a little toasty, and he told me that everybody there misses me, and if I wanted to come back, I can come back. Now, listen, this was years ago, so does the offer still stand? I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah.
I haven't seen him in like 8 years or something like that. But yeah, no, he was great. And he was always complimentary and supportive of my work, and I only really got my nose like, bopped by him like once in any kind of significant way, and I deserved it. So
I wonder what a Todd nose bopping is like. I wonder, Todd, what is that like? What's it like when he bops your nose? I don't know.
Like, yeah, he is, so I don't know. Again, I don't know how things have gone now. I know the company's changed and it's gotten bigger and all these different things have happened. So I don't know. I can't speak to him now, but at the time I worked with him, I'll say this. When I got hired there, we had about like 54 people on the team. Small. It was very small. So I got to know him really, really well. Oh, yeah, it was tiny. By the time I left, it was only like 110. So it was still tiny. And so I think I got to know Todd, not at the beginning necessarily by any stretch of the imagination, but it was still a small and intimate team where everyone knew each other.
And that's not what it is now. Now it's like 400 to 500 people, like not that. And I think this is a common pattern you'll hear, is that Todd became inaccessible. Todd became so busy that you couldn't talk to him about stuff. You had to schedule meetings where people that reported to him would then listen to your feedback or listen to your concern or update or whatever, and then they would bring it to Todd. So he became very, very difficult to reach. And that's something you'll hear time and time again. Funnily enough, I can't go into too much detail, but I will be able to eventually. But recently I was speaking to somebody at Obsidian, and I asked them, how are you guys able to be so efficient? Like, how are you able to put out games at such a steep pace with like a pretty solid batting average? Like you're getting like solid Metacritic scores and everything. How are you able to do that when other studios are struggling to put out a game in 6 years? Like, how is that happening? Their answer was very interesting, and it was kind of multifaceted, but it basically came down to, we have smaller, more intimate teams that are experienced and know what they're doing, and we manage our scope. So we say no to a lot of things. When we're trying to figure out what we should do, we say no a lot, but that helps. That helps us figure out where we should be going in terms of like direction, and it also helps us avoid wasting time and resources on stuff that ends up getting cut, right? So I think it's just a well-managed, well-scoped project, and then it's also a team that's relatively small. Everybody knows each other, and when you need something from the programming department, you get it from your chair, you walk 30 feet, and you talk to Tim in programming. He fixes it, and then he's like, damn it, I need this character rig fixed or something. I got to go talk to one of the animators. Gets up, walks 25 feet to Angela's desk and says, I need this fixed. And they do that. And then Angela's like, I got to get this fixed. Let me go over to the artists, walks 30 feet back the other way and talks to Rebecca, and they get that fixed. Like that's I think what really helps it. But when you're on such a large scale of a team where it's like 400 people, it's no longer like that. It's like, okay, I have to schedule a Slack on Slack, and I have to go and schedule a meeting through Microsoft Teams, and then I got to go into Jira and I got to schedule this task. I have to change the status, and this needs to go up for review by my manager, and then I'm going to do this. And it becomes so much busy work and bureaucracy that it just does not help anything. You know, it greatly decreases efficiency, I think. Yeah, people hear Teams and have like flashbacks. It's like, oh no. So I think honestly, the vibe I'm getting from a lot of developers that I've spoken to, smaller teams, yeah, you can't make the as big of quadruple A games or whatever, but the smaller teams really help with agility and efficiency. And that's something you do not get. You just do not get it when you have a team of 400 people. It just changes. And that's what you'll hear a lot of these guys say.
And so as the company's changed, I think his role within the company's changed. I think there's not probably that same sense of connectivity and everything. Yeah. And I wouldn't be surprised if maybe he felt, a little sour about me leaving, because I think when you're the guy in charge and you're trying to run things as well as you can, and then you have someone like me kind of tell him like, I'm leaving, like, gotta go, especially after a hit like Skyrim. I mean, I gotta imagine you're feeling like, if it was me, I'd be like a little bit bitter. I'd be like, why you leave, man? Like, we had a good thing going,
Yeah,
and we did have a good thing going. We really did. We had a beautiful thing going during the time I was there.
He would understand that, surely. I mean, you would have told him the reasons as to why you're going.
Of course.
So there'd probably be a part of him that's bitter, but then probably another part that would understand. Yeah.
Absolutely. No. I mean, when I told him I was leaving and taking a year off and writing a fantasy novel and all that, he was like, dude, I want to do that. And I looked at him. I said, I know, man, but you can't. Like, you're actually stuck here. Like, you actually cannot leave at all. And so I think that I think he really understood where I was coming from. I think he really did. But it's like, again, like, he's stuck there. So, why wouldn't he feel like, well, if I'm stuck here, like, we should be here together. I think he works really hard to build a team. I think over the years, it's hard to build a team and have people constantly leaking away at the edges. And, after a while, you start to feel, listen, I'm completely guessing as to his psychology, but again, I think it's lonely at the top,
Yeah, it is. Did you have like a newfound appreciation for?
I also just want to say I love their logo, the two little kiwis that form the game controller. It's really clever. I like it. As for this, I mean, I do think that it is. I'm sorry, that did him dirty with the freeze frame. I do think it is lonely at the top, because Todd does get all of the blame. He does get all of the money too, most of it. It seems, at least. He's doing just fine. But I'm sure it's lonely at the top, and a lot of the people that have been with him for the longest time, they liked the small, intimate studio. And as BGS has grown, that company culture is gone, dead and gone. And I'm naturally, a lot of people have decided to leave. And I mean, I know personally that, like, if, for example, this, the channels kept growing and the stream kept growing, and it got to the point where, like, it was just so big that, like, Jacob and Trevor and my manager Jake, if they all were like, you know what, I'm good, I'm gonna move on, I'm gonna do something else, I'd be bummed. Like, I would probably be making more than I've ever made, and I'd have more popularity than ever before, but I think I would still be kind of like bummed about it, because the people I came to the dance with left without me, I don't know. Yeah. But then, I'd cry while dabbing my tears with $100 bills, which is confirmed to be what Todd does. No, I don't know what he does.
Once you went off and you worked on Fireborn. Was it Fireborn?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Fireborn. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. No, his ability to say no was one I wish I had embraced much earlier in the years afterwards. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think building games like Skyrim, they seem limitless, and Fallout, they seem limitless. They seem huge. They seem impossibly huge. But actually, like, to do that, to pull that off, the guy at the top really has to say no to a lot of ideas, to the point where it was frustrating and annoying. And there's projects I worked on after hours just to get them in the game, and by and large, they got in the game, which is great. But it was very clear to me that I could not work on whatever I kind of dreamed up at that time at work all the time, because we had a game to get through and we had the fundamentals to hit. And so Yeah, certainly. I think he had a very strong sense of what the games we were working on were and what they had to be and what they weren't and what they didn't have to be. And he would very quickly say no to anything that didn't fit within that paradigm. And and that by definition that's very limiting. But he had a great quote. Say
I refer to this all the time. You guys might remember this.
that we went over a lot, which is we can do everything. I'm sorry, we can do anything, but we can't do everything. And so the idea is, it's a game. We can make the game do whatever we want, but you can only do a certain number of things. And so that has stuck with me, I think. Yeah, that focus on the core experience has stuck with me.
I mean, there's some concern, I suppose, that when the day comes when he hangs up the gloves, so to speak, like who will be able to take the mantle
when he hangs up the
from
mouse
him,
and keyboard.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, I think
what's crazy is right now the only person that's really primed to take over for Todd when he's done is probably Emil. So I don't know. Like I'm sure that there's other people, but like even with Starfield, you're gonna see in these interviews one of the people that is on like the docket that is gonna talk is like Will Shen. Will Shen was one of the senior quest designers. I think he was the senior quest designer, and he left. Like even some of the senior people at Bethesda that have been there for ages, for the last handful of years, have been leaving in the last handful of years. They like worked for 20 years and then they decide they want to do something else. I think that the acquisition, the sort of corporatization of BGS, it growing to such an extreme degree, I think that has like pulled away a lot of the OGs that originally were like really, really close with Todd and worked on games like Morrowind, into Oblivion, into Fallout 3, into Skyrim, into Fallout 4. And they worked on all of these games with him. A lot of those people have peeled off and left. And again, it's lonely at the top. But I think it's in large part because the studio has just changed so much. It literally is not the same studio it once was. It is way bigger, way less efficient, demonstrably. It makes a lot more money. Those paid creations, those paid mods do really, really well, but it's just different.
I'm a big fan of changing up your career, as is evidenced by my ever-changing career. And so I think when the day comes for him to hang up his gloves, it'll be a good day. Not because he doesn't still have it or whatever, but I think that going from one game to the next is exhausting. And if you have to helm that game and see it through every single step of the way, that's exhausting. So on the one hand, I'm like, dude, this dude was born to do this. On the other hand, I'm like, I don't know, he's like 50 something at this point, and like he's been doing this hardcore now for like what, 25 years, like being not just working in games, but being at the helm of them. It's just and I think the day he hangs up his gloves, there's going to be a lot of stumbling and staggering by whoever reassumes that responsibility, for sure.
I mean, we got along.
What's crazy is that probably is like, I think it's probably still like 2040s would be my guess. Like there was that one thing where, what's his name? Something Midler. He's one of the journalists with VGC. He was on the podcast, the Friends Per Second podcast, and he was saying how he thinks Todd's out of it after Elder Scrolls 6. I was like, dude, he's not that old. Like I think he still got it. But like I could see him going into his 60s or 70s and then or probably 60s, but then retiring at some point. But like, I don't know, man. It's I'm sure it's exhausting day in, day out. Well, my understanding, Corey, correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding, glad you're here, Corey, by the way. My understanding is that like the waves of stress kind of come and go with like the projects as they go. So like if you have because I was talking to to be fair, he's an indie dev, but like this was the big moment where his game launched and his stress level was like at the ceiling. He's losing his mind. But then he takes like a month or two off, he goes on vacation, and his stress kind of drops, and then he's like, okay, I'm feeling good. Oh God, wait, I have to make something. And the stress raises again. And then it just kind of steadily raises as the years go by until the game goes to launch, and then the cycle repeats. And so like it goes in waves. It's a cycle. I'm sure when you're like the person in charge, you don't get as much of a dip because you immediately have to be figuring out what the next thing is. So you just go straight from this straight into that. But my understanding, at least from one of the indie devs I spoke to, was that it at least comes in waves, you know? Corey says it never goes to zero, but yeah, it comes in waves, but the stress of everything is always there at a much higher level than zero. Well, and dude, like when I've tried to explain this to some of my friends, like when you're somebody that is in charge of other people and like their livelihoods, and if you screw up, they don't get to pay their mortgage, they don't get to pay their rent, they don't pay for food. Like it's an added thing, because like if I screw up and then I lose my income, okay, that's bad enough. But like if I screw up and then I lose my income and Jacob loses income and Trevor loses income, like that raises the stakes. And so imagine for somebody like Todd, who has like hundreds of people underneath them, it's like, yeah, if your direction on this isn't great and it falls, like it's got to be crazy. Like the stakes are very, very high. And I would also imagine another layer to this too is as like are a creative person and you're getting into like your 50s going into your 60s, I'm sure there's a point where like legacy starts to come into it, which I don't think is like a selfish thing. I think it's just a natural thing. Like you start to think, what's my legacy going to be? What is my magnum opus going to be? Is it behind me or is it in front of me? Like you're also worried about how your legacy will be established, how people will remember you. And I think that also raises the stakes again, you know? Corey says game industry at age of 50 is a normal life age of 60. It just ages even faster. At leading, that is what it feels like to me, or at least that's what it feels like to me. I am the worst at balancing stress, though. Others are much better than me. I will say there's some people that it's just ridiculous. Like there's a lady, I can't remember her name. There's a lady on TikTok and she is a literal brain surgeon, and she does like day in the life vlogs where she just vlogs her life as a brain surgeon. And dude, it's insane. Like she's like, oh yeah, so I just woke up at 4 a.m. and then I go for a run, and then I go in and make the kids breakfasts. I take them to school, and then I go to surgery, and I'm in surgery for 16 hours, and then I come back home and I sleep for 2.5 hours. And I'm like, how would you do that? Like, and it's not just like, oh, I did some work today. It's like I am in people's brains, and if I screw up, they die. Like, but she's just like, yep, it was a good Tuesday. I couldn't do it, man. I couldn't do it. I'm glad there's people like her who can do it and are chill and like can be cool, calm, and collected with that stress. But definitely, like some people handle it much better, and I'm glad they do, because you don't want somebody who's nervous working on your brain. You know, you want somebody who's very, very put together. You know, it's just a very, very different thing. You get used to everything with time. Well, you get used to it or it crushes you, because there's some people who can adapt to it, and then there's others who can't. You know, when I worked in corporate real estate, they would always say, they're like, no, you're going to come, you're going to work your butt off, and you're going to see if you can do it, or it's going to crush you. Like, you're going to adapt to it and become phenomenal, or you'll sink. You'll jump into the ocean. And it's one of the fallacies where like everybody jumps in the ocean off the side of the ship. You look over the side of the ship in 15 minutes and you're like, wow, these people are in here. All the people that jumped in are still treading water and are just fine. It must not be that hard to stay afloat, because you don't see the people who sank. You only see the people who stayed afloat, you know? And that can lead you into a false sense of security where you think everybody can do that. Everybody can float. And it's just because you aren't seeing the people who sank, you know? Anyway, that's beside the point. This is Nate Perkypile. He's a world artist that worked on Skyrim, Fallout 3, and Fallout 4, and he also is an indie developer, and he left BGS to go and make an indie game. And his indie game was really interesting because it was a like open world adventure survival game, and it was a game also where he didn't have any textures in it. So all of the visuals were textured with like the geometry and the little nanite stuff that he was using in, I believe, Unreal. It's very, very cool. It's very, very, very cool. Survivor's bias. Yeah, exactly. Or another way, like another spin on it is also how people tend to fit information they have around their current situation. There's the puddle analogy. you know, which is where like, you know, a puddle wakes up one day and looks around himself and is like, oh my God, this is crazy. This hole is perfectly molded to me. I fit perfectly inside. I mean, it's really precise. It is crazy. That's incredible. And it's almost as if it was made for me to be inside of it. And it's not. It's just that you're here because of the hole. Like, you know, it's not that it was made for you. This is just the emergent situation. It's usually something that comes up in like debates over evolution and things where people are like, the earth is precisely positioned between the, you know, in the Goldilocks zone. If it was a little bit further out or a little bit further in, we wouldn't be here. And it's like, yeah, exactly. If it were further out, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be here to comment on how far away we are from the sun. We just wouldn't be here. You know? Anyway, continuing.
Yeah. So like some people would be, I suppose, scared of him because they're like, oh, that's Todd Howard. But, you know, I was there when we were like 60 people or whatever. So I always talked to him fairly regularly. So to me, I was just like, yeah, just go talk to Todd. He's fine.
Was that still possible by the time you got to Starfield, though? Or had it
I mean, it definitely got a lot harder because he was a lot busier and like, you know, needed to fly off to all these other studios and stuff. But I suppose at the level that I was, I'd probably talk to him more than, you know, some new person who got there after everything got big.
So does Todd get quite passionate about UI?
Yeah. Like, plenty of people could go their entire career there and maybe not even talk to him, possibly, especially now. But when you're talking about UI, like, he literally cares about the kerning of fonts. Like, that is 100% not an exaggeration.
The level of the detail. Wow.
Yes. So I was like, okay, have at it.
Todd and his fonts. Actually, this is something it made me think of. This is a deep cut again. Why do I remember this? I don't know. I can't explain it. But the making of Skyrim documentary. It was the really old one. Maybe the tour. He shows a whiteboard. He shows a whiteboard at one point in this. Yeah, here. So he shows a whiteboard, and on the whiteboard is actually the early designs for the UI for Skyrim. Let me see if I can find the particular, because I don't think that was the exact whiteboard. But there's a moment where he shows a whiteboard. Maybe it's not this documentary. But he has outlined all of like the UI, how you look to the heavens, you look to the stars, and you can see they have all of this specific stuff, player playing cool animations, cool workbench, recipe requirements, new stats, button help. So like he's actually charting out what the UI is going to look like on the whiteboard before they build it out. Because he cares. He was in the chess club. He was. And who's laughing now? I was also in the chess club. I was the team captain. I think if we ever did a collab with Todd, we wouldn't even talk about games. We would just play chess. Maybe we do a charity fundraiser where like it's the Luke and Todd play chess and can't talk about Starfield. Maybe that's what we do. That would be funny.
He wants to be able to have his hands in everything, but that's not humanly possible. So you end up with...
Oh, yeah. So to be clear, this is Bruce Nesmith. You have probably seen him in some of the documentaries from like way back in the day, but he's a designer on Skyrim, Fallout 3, 4, 76, and on Starfield, and recently retired.
A situation where some things get very
Will we talk about candles? No, I'll just have them lit in the background.
lightly touched, and then the things he cares mostly about, you know, he does a deep dive into. You know, as talented as he is, it's a mistake to think that any studio director is personally doing all the work on any project.
Of course.
That's just not realistic. You know, they're fortunate if they can have the time to even look at something a little bit and pass some judgment on it. Instead, the vast majority of them do what Todd did, which is pick and choose the things he cares most about, and then trust the rest of his staff to carry through on other things. And, you know, just deal with a really light touch on those other principles or work efforts, and let his directors and his managers and his talented staff try and create the best product they can. I mean, when I first joined the company in 2004, as you pointed out,
this also, to be clear, this is a common thing where we even saw it in the Dan Houser interview, where Dan Houser, co-founder of Rockstar, knows what he's doing. He was saying how there were plenty of things in like Red Dead 2 that he never knew about, that he had never seen, he had never laid eyes on, because the game was so big. Even as like one of the head honchos, he's like a lead writer, there were things that he like just couldn't see because the game was just that big. And it's something Todd's mentioned. I'm sure like Hidetaka Miyazaki, there's tons of stuff in Elden Ring that he hadn't seen by the time the game came out, and like little things that pop up and he's like, I didn't know we put that in there. That's crazy, you know, because it's just so big. One person can't be involved with every little aspect of it. At some point you have to let go and let other people take control and agency over it.
The only project,
or how CDPR put it, have ownership. It was specifically ownership. The small strike teams, they work on this level, they have ownership of that level. If the level's bad, we know why it's bad. It's their level, it's their problem. But if it's good, you know why it's good. It's also them. So, you know, give responsibility, ownership over stuff, and let people rise to the occasion.
going on really was Oblivion. I mean, the whole concept of DLC didn't even exist. Bethesda was one of the first to even do a DLC of any kind.
Yeah, innovation, baby.
You know, with the infamous horse armor DLC. But you know, so that was the only project. You know, there were a few things that I'm sure you had to deal with in terms of
yeah, this is one you have to let go for sure. Well, I was even just talking to another YouTuber last night, and this is on a much smaller scale than what we're talking about here, of course. But for him, he edits all of his own stuff. And these are like 1.5 hour, 2 hour videos, okay? Like I used to do when I edited all of my own critiques and everything. And I was trying to tell him, I was like, you will be letting go of control, but you have to at some point, especially if you want to grow and get bigger and do bigger, crazier things, at some point you have to let go, and you'll be giving up control, so it won't be exactly the way you would have done it. The video that Jacob cuts together for me is not the same video that I would cut together, but that's almost why I like it, you know, because Jacob will come and bring things that make the videos way funnier than if I were to just edit myself. He brings a unique spin on it. He does something that I never would have thought of. Like one of our most popular videos of the last couple of years was a Star Citizen video where we did a number of montages because I wanted to show how the tech was crazy and you could fly from the planet's like atmosphere or orbit down through the atmosphere and land on the planet's surface. And so Jacob went and found a bunch of obscure Jimmy Neutron songs of Carl Weezer singing random things and put that in for the montages. It was very random, but it was funny. And I never, ever would have thought to do that. And so even though the video was very different than how I would have made it, it was better, I think. And the candle wax bit. Jacob put a little candle wax bit because I was filming a video. I had to do a candle swap, a costume swap and change because I filmed like half of it one day and half the next, I think. And so I was wearing something else. And Jacob saw that. He could have just left it as unmentioned. Oh, Luke's wearing a different shirt. People would figure out, probably filmed it the day after. But instead, he put a little blurb on screen and was like, Luke spilled his candle on himself while drinking it, thinking it was his coffee. And now the Luke drinks candles meme lives on. And that's only because he was doing it. He was involved. If I was making that video, I guarantee you, I never would have thought of writing that I drank a candle and spilled it on myself. But he made it better. And so I do think if you have talented people around you and you can learn how to let go and more importantly, trust them and trust that they'll bring their spin to it and make it better in that way, you can end up with a significantly better product at the end of it. It won't be what you would have made, but that's precisely the point, you know? Hashtag release the candle cut. No. Yeah, at some point I got to realize that I'm the old man holding them back all from creating something great. I think I think unfortunately that's kind of what we all eventually realize is that we're holding back the young people. Yeah, I can't. Luke drank the candle. I don't know what you want from me. Yeah, Candlegate. It's just that, but it's also very freeing. Once you learn to let go and trust the creative people around you, things get easier for you, easier for them because you're not micromanaging them. And I think the product gets better. The one exception being if the people you're trusting end up being bad at what they do, which does sometimes happen. I hired a company to help me edit TikToks and I tried to trust them. And some of you may remember, they started posting TikToks. I don't even know how they did it, but like they were TikToks that were like, TikTok should be in the vertical format, right? So you have the vertical video like that. What they were doing is they were exporting it like this, but horizontal. And then that was getting put into a vertical format. So what you effectively ended up with was, if this was your phone screen, the video they were posting, the actual video was like this big in the center of it. And all of this was just black bar. Like it was horrible. And I was like, I don't even know how you did that. Like, I don't know how you exported it and ended up with that. It looked horrible. It was bad. And they posted like 10 of these in one drop, even though they're supposed to do like one a day. So we decided not to work anymore together. So sometimes you trust people that are bad and you get burnt. But when you have people who are good at what they do and you trust them, it gets better. It gets even better. And it's awesome, Who? I don't even know if their like little company still exists anymore, frankly, because it wouldn't surprise me given the quality of their work if people stopped hiring them. But yeah, that was a whole other thing. Anyway, continuing on with this. Corey says shit never gets easier. Well, especially in game development, like at least with videos, it's largely static. Like our process is pretty much the same from video to video. Of course, bigger videos or reviews and critiques and stuff, there's added nuance there and complexities there. But for video games, from year to year, they just get more and more complicated, and player expectations shift and change, and the technology changes. And so I can only imagine like how much worse it is with game development. I can only imagine.
Reprints of things or foreign language translations of old products, stuff like that. But in terms of development, it's just oblivion. Fast forward to 3 years ago when I left, he probably had 2 dozen projects that were on the table, some small, some large. There's mobile games, there's remote things that he just has to, take a look at, in addition to a variety of larger projects.
2 dozen. And that includes, I'm sure, the Indiana Jones game that he was executive producer on, the Fallout show. There's rumors and discussions of an Elder Scrolls show. Of course, Elder Scrolls 6, Fallout 5 pre-production. Like, there's so much stuff.
At Lo-Fi Lazy, donated $10 through Super Chat.
Thank you.
Did you hear about the Marathon art theft settlement? Cha-ching for anti-real, hopefully.
Cha-ching, indeed. What I said, and what was interesting is you guys clipped it and sent it to them. So I don't know if they ever saw it, but my recommendation to anti-real was the second it was very clear what had happened, that somebody at Bungie had taken their artwork and put it all throughout the game. I was like, do not talk to them. Do not say, it's fine. It's okay. I just want recognition. Don't say anything like that. Go get a lawyer. Have your lawyer speak on your behalf. That's why you get a lawyer. Give it a year and you'll have retirement, because this is a big oopsie. And it's way cheaper for them to settle it with you, to the extent of you having your entire retirement covered, basically, than risking, playing the game, rolling the dice, and hoping you don't sue them. So just get representation, go off, take care of it, let the lawyers fight it out, and you'll be good. And it sounds like that's what happened. There was a settlement, and most likely Anti-Real had to sign like an agreement saying, a non-disclosure agreement and a non-disparagement agreement. And so we'll probably never know or hear what the settlement was, but hopefully it was sufficient. And Anti-Real said it was to their satisfaction. So, I mean, it would seem like it. But yeah, that was a bit of a mess, but it seems to have been resolved.
So, that's a lot.
It is a
And the
lot.
transition that you're talking about from him being extremely accessible to him being very difficult to access personally isn't something that happens overnight. That was years in the making. So it starts with people who are in management positions or leadership positions have easier access. Transitions to access to him has to go through them or is much less frequent. You have to schedule it way in advance, all that kind of stuff. And he tried very, very hard to be accessible for a very long time. This isn't something that any manager wants to do, is to become less accessible. But when you've got 400 people under your belt, what are you going to do? Spend 3/4 of the day talking to each of them that wants to talk to you?
It's not feasible.
Or do you have mid-level and higher level managers who can take that responsibility and execute that for you so that you can get on with the more important work of directing the overall project? He's struggled throughout his entire career in this letting go process. I mean, if what I said earlier is he had a light touch on everything and then deep dives into the things he wanted, that's a light touch literally on everything, which means that one of the issues that the studio struggled with occasionally was, well, we can't move forward because Todd hasn't had a chance to look at it. Now, obviously, this wasn't something that was, completely a blocker because the games got produced on time.
Yeah.
Which is not a common thing to happen in the industry, to, have it done excellently and have it done on time. But
was it? I genuinely am not sure because it seemed like timeline
donated
shifted.
20 New Zealand dollars through Super Chat.
Thank
Hey,
you.
Luke, just wanted to say love the content and keep up the good work. Watching you videos got me back into gaming and gaming news, so huge thanks.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate you. And thank you for watching. Thank you for the super chat. That's very, very generous of you. And I'm glad you're here, my friend. Glad we got you back. You tried to get away from gaming, but we got you back in. Got ya. Boom. Trapped. Right in time for $70 releases, baby. Somebody's gonna clip this and be like, I'm beginning to think Luke's an industry plant. He confessed on stream that he's trapping people. Can you imagine? That'd be the greatest plot twist ever if it was like, I was like I work for EA or somebody and I'm like just trying to hook people in to get them to spend $70. That'd be funny. Anyway, I think, timelines did shift. I think with Fallout 5, they hit the timeline that they originally expected. Fallout 76, I mean, I don't know how you could say that was anything but rushed because, I mean, we all remember what it was like. So I don't think you could say that it was, what did he call it?
The industry did, have it done excellently and have it done on time.
Yeah, I don't think it was done. It was done on time, but done is a strong word, and I don't know if I'd say it was done excellently. And even Starfield, that was originally, the timeline's messy, but basically it was originally announced for 2022, I believe, and then it got delayed to 23. But Phil said that the original goal when they bought out ZeniMax was for the game to launch a year before, which would suggest that it was originally slated for 2021, which lines up with those Xbox FTC hearing leaks. So Starfield ended up coming out a solid 2 years after the original target release date. So I'm not sure what he's referring to because the FTC hearings and all that stuff seems pretty clear to suggest that it's not really the case. So at least the last 2 releases seem to have either been rushed or delayed pretty significantly from their original targets. But maybe that doesn't count because the target was moved, and so they technically hit the target. I don't know. Steven says, I have surgery next week, going to rewatch the essays and VODs. Thanks for what you do. Oh, thank you. Glad to have you. And hopefully your surgery goes well and is uneventful, but hopefully we can provide you some chill vibes, you know, chill vibes as it were. Hopefully you'll have some really cool trailers after the Game Awards to look at and check out, and some deep dives on, like, one of my favorite things is when a new trailer drops and then people do those deep dives of like 15 details you missed, and it's like in the corner of the screen in a book you can see on the page it says something that's actually referring to this piece of lore which has to do with the bad guys that are going to be in the game. I love that kind of thing, and I think we're going to have a lot of those after the Game Awards. It's going to be a whole thing.
But it does mean that when he leaves, they're going to feel it.
I do think they'll feel it. I think it's going to be fascinating to see where it goes. Like, it's going to be fascinating. The other one I will show, I wanted to bring up was this one from Will Shen. This is from the other clip. Again, you guys should go watch the full interviews. They're fascinating. Give KIWI TALKZ a sub because he does phenomenal interviews. Got all these guys together to talk. It's fascinating. These guys also, Dennis and the other one in this video, Jeremy, also great guys, very talented. But I mentioned Will earlier in the video, so I figure we'll just want to show you this a little bit before we adjourn. Whoop, I muted it. So Will Shen, designer on Skyrim, Fallout 4, 76, and Starfield. He was the senior quest designer on Starfield. He also has done numerous things. For example, Will Shen GDC. He gave this talk with one of his other co-developers on their process on building these out, level and quest collaboration from Skyrim to Starfield. Very interesting talk. Again, highly recommend you check it out. But Will is like, he knows what he's doing. He was high up within BGS, but the most interesting thing about this GDC talk that I reference a lot is actually his extended discussion on using systems like Jira, because he had worked on older projects like Skyrim when the team was like 120 people. And he saw the transition from that to Starfield, where it ballooned upwards of hundreds of people and became so big that it was like hard to juggle and manage how many people. Like, look at this chart. This chart still blows my mind. The source from Moby Game credits. So this is kind of like IMDb, but for games, where you can see all the developers that worked on something. And in this case, they were able to track the data and see how many people worked on Starfield. You can see on Skyrim, peak, about 150. Fallout 4, 170, 180 maybe. And then this also, to be clear, will include like producers and people not necessarily like programmers exclusively. This is like everybody on the team. Fallout 76, the number jumps significantly. And then with Starfield, the number is way bigger. Lots of contractors, lots of outsourced teams, groups like Machine Games, which reportedly helped them on like improving the first person shooting mechanics and stuff like that. So this whole talk is fascinating. It's definitely worth checking out if you're interested in BGS. But this is Will, after he left Bethesda, doing this interview with KIWI TALKZ, discussing a bit about his time with the studio and his experience with Todd specifically.
Entered as an intern, Todd was already really important. You know, they had just done Oblivion, the Elder Scrolls Oblivion, which was a big success for them. They had just acquired the Fallout license, and they were, you know, gearing up to, I was part of the production for Fallout during the internship, Fallout 3. So he was already the undisputed, you know, leader, the person in charge of Bethesda Game Studios. So we never really got to know each other personally because by the time I had entered the organization, he was already like game industry famous.
Yeah.
He knew Adam Sessler personally. You know, he was on I forget the name of the show. I think it was G4 TV, Adam Sessler and Morgan Webb. I think he was on that show a few times. I don't quite remember, but he was already a name in the games industry by the time I entered the industry as an intern. So he was always very, very high above. And even as I ascended the ranks, you know, I was just ascending the ranks as the organization was growing. So he remained further and further away. I was eventually in meetings with him every week with like the rest of the leadership, but that was pretty much as far as we go. And I guess my one regret from my time at Bethesda was I came in after the point where you could know him personally. And I was always really curious, who's the person, you know, who's the person behind the fame, you know, because once you're that famous, and you're in charge of all these people, you can't, you know, it's really hard to let people in and show, you know, your weaker, more vulnerable side. You know, how's he like with his family? You know, what really like makes him mad? Like, does he hate Tabasco on his tacos or whatever? You know, those little things that really make you human, that only the people closest to you get to see, those more vulnerable parts of you. And that's just not possible. You know, he wasn't even my boss. He was like several rungs above me, you know, when I came in at the lowest. So that was never going to happen. But that was always something I was really curious about.
I think that's true also of like pretty much any boss. Like we've all had the people that we've worked for. When I was in real estate, my bosses were all very, very tough guys, you know, hard asses even at times, but they were very experienced, but they also had an open door policy. So if you needed to get a hold of them, you could go in there and talk to Mark if you needed to for extended periods, even though, you know, he's filthy rich and amazingly successful and a very big deal in the real estate scene in Denver. If you needed to talk to him, you still could, you know, it was open, but he wouldn't let you in. Like, you know, he wasn't going to ask you out for a drink or anything. And so I think that's true of like a lot of boss relationships.
What is it like to actually be that person? We'll never, no one will truly know but him. But there were a lot of people who were a lot closer to him because they had come up together when the future was much less certain.
Yes.
I think also this, not just to glaze Corey, but like this is why I think the Raising Kratos documentary, for example, was so good, because it not just humanized the team, but it also helped people understand how these games get made. It helps them appreciate it more, I think. And you see not just how the games shift and change, but you also see the human element of it, of the stresses, the questions. There's one part in here where they're discussing the cancellation of the sci-fi project somewhere in here. But they show snippets of that, and they show like how hard it was on the team to see all that stuff canceled. Clean shaven Corey. Wow. That's a throwback. But I think that that's really, really useful. And it's not just because I think documentaries are cool in general, but I think it's important for this industry to also humanize the people involved with it. Because so much of like internet discourse is literally about dehumanizing people and baking it or boiling it down to just like game bad, studio bad. But like, it's important to remember that these are actual human beings that are working on this stuff, and people are making the best choices they know how to make. They're doing the best with a very tough situation, trying to figure it out. And so, I mean, imagine a documentary like this, but covering the production of Elder Scrolls 6 from the beginning of like the first pitch all the way through to like launch. That would be crazy. And I think honestly, it would do a lot for showing the human side of BGS. It would demystify a lot of it. It might reveal some interesting tidbits. But I think it would be really cool to see them do it. And this is one of the initiatives that PlayStation's had that I've really liked, is the push for documentaries and being transparent with the development process. And I think you've seen, not just in the fact that like these videos get, 6 million views, like clearly a lot of people care about them, but I think this probably, like this documentary, I imagine has recruited a lot of people into the gaming industry to see like how it's done and to get excited by that and to see that it's tough, but it's also very rewarding when it pays off, So more documentaries, please. That's my point. All of this is just, it's important to remember that even with somebody like Todd, we may make fun of him in the form of cardboard cutouts and candles. Ultimately, it's because we're fans. And I've always like stressed, we meme on this stuff, but you do need to remember that even though we meme well. The pun sounded less cringe in my head, but then I said it. And it sounded worse when I said it out loud. But what are you gonna do? We're moved past it. I just, it's important to remember that like even Todd is a legend. There's a reason that he's so well known. He is a legend, and he does deserve some damn respect. He does. Even if we poke fun, So somebody was asking me for a gaming hot take the other day, and frankly, like one of my hot takes, which surprises people, is that like Starfield really was not that bad. Starfield's biggest crime was that it was just kind of mid. The way I described it in my game, or in my review of the game, was that Starfield is kind of the ultimate kind of game. Like, it's fine. But people acting like it's a disaster or just terrible. I'm like, I don't know. Like, did you play it? It's like that's the problem, is that it's got cool ideas. It just doesn't really excel at a lot of them. But I think because we talk about Starfield a lot and everything, people assume that I'm just going to be like, it's terrible, it's awful. I'm like, The problem is, like, you play 25, 30 hours of it, you have a really good time. You play the full 60, 70, 80, and it's like, it gets really boring. But I would not call it bad. Suicide Squad, I would call that bad. but I don't think I'd call Starfield bad. Parts of it are bad. Parts of it are really impressive and good. But yeah, you got to establish your scale, right? You got to establish your scale. He took my thing.